Hello, amazing people. It is time for another hot lap. Buckle up, get your helmet, and let's go for a ride. I hope you all had a fantastic Monday. I'm recording this on Tuesday morning. It is 8:30 a.m. It's obviously too early for me to be recording. I've got my coffee here. I've got my water over here. And I just recorded this entire episode. But I started recording on my camera and in OBS to record my microphone. I ended up hitting start streaming instead of start recording. So, with that being said, here we are again, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get into this episode. I'm going to bring the same energy that I gave for the recording, but just again. I hope you guys enjoyed the video for the Australian Grand Prix. That went out yesterday at 8 p.m. Unfortunately, I did not notice that it hadn't uploaded to YouTube yet, so I went ahead and did that. I am sorry about that. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you're on Spotify listening, you can go ahead and jump over to my YouTube channel. It is the Hotlap Podcast. You can find the video over there. If you're already on YouTube, welcome back. Thank you guys for tuning in. This week, we're going to be diving into the worlds of Formula One, World Endurance Championship, and NASCAR as we take a look at the teams and seasons so far in Formula One and WEC and discuss the potential competitors for victory as well as breaking down the Richmond race that took place in the NASCAR Cup Car Series this previous weekend. Let's go ahead and jump into Formula One right now. Looking forward towards the Japanese Grand Prix next weekend. The excitement for the season ahead of us is only rising. The first two races had fans and myself's hopes down for the season as Max Verstappen absolutely dominated the weekends, finishing basically 10 hours before everybody else in the race, to put it very, very simply. He was just absolutely gone in those races. It felt as though the only thing that could hold Red Bull back was if the team fell apart internally due to the investigations happening. Those investigations, of course, being about the team principal, Christian Horner, and the chief executive, who is Helmut Marko. If you guys missed the episode about that, go ahead and slide back down the YouTube channel. There's an episode with Christian and Helmut Marko in the thumbnail. Can't remember exactly what it's called, but you'll be able to find it pretty easily. If you did miss that, there's a lot of issues happening within Red Bull currently. I think I even spread it out between two episodes, but it is basically Max Verstappen and Helmut Marko versus Christian Horner. Not literally, but Max Verstappen and his father are not happy with the outcome of the Christian Horner investigation, and Helmut Marko has been accused of giving evidence against Christian Horner for the case. Something has to happen. The tensions are very high currently at Red Bull Racing. We thought that was all that could stop them this season. However, during the Australian Grand Prix, we saw Max Verstappen's Red Bull come up with a mechanical failure. It eventually led to the pole sitter's demise in the Grand Prix in Australia after only 3 laps, cutting his race very, very short. This brought forward a very exciting race as teams looked upon the opportunity gifted to them, trying to capitalize on it. We see one team, however, capitalize very, very strongly on it. That is, of course, Ferrari, and specifically Carlos Sainz, who were the big winners for the weekend without the Red Bull Starboy. Mercedes, of course, were the big losers, unable to capitalize on the opportunity presented to them as they both exited the Grand Prix a bit early, both of them being George Russell and Lewis Hamilton, the two drivers with a double DNF. Also a tough weekend for the backup driver at Red Bull, Sergio Perez. He started the race further down the grid than he would have liked to, in about 7th or 8th position. The opportunity presented itself to Perez to be able to, show out and kind of replace Max's aura a little bit, prove that he is that driver that belongs in that second Red Bull seat. But we did not see that for him, unfortunately. He found his difficulty working his way up through the field, made a couple of good passes, had good strategy, but finished behind the two Papaya McLarens in 5th place. McLaren, of course, another team who was able to very, very much capitalize on the absence of Max Verstappen, finishing in the 3rd and 4th position. A big points-paying weekend for them. Another big winner, I would say, doesn't have anything to do with Max's Verstappen missing, was Haas, who also finished with double points. Very good for them. May actually keep them in a bit of a midfield fight this year. If Red Bull continue to have car reliability issues, it could be a very, very interesting season. However, supposedly Red Bull is bringing an update to Japan on top of their zero pod system. It is supposed to be an improved zero pod system. If you missed that, again, I have an episode about it. So go back to maybe even the first episode as we talk about the car reveals how Red Bull do not have side pods. There's a lot of good information there about it if you missed it. However, this update will make or break the season for Red Bull. We'll have to wait and see what it does to the absolute rocket ship that they currently possess. If it is bad, if the car is slow, if the reliability is off, if it wears the tires, if anything like this of this nature happens, they've wasted all of this R&D into the system, and they will have to scrap it, and the car will stay how it is. Will that bring up future reliability issues? Will it cause them to not have the R&D left that they need to develop the car to stay competitive this season? They're all questions that need to be asked. If they have absolutely nailed the zero pod upgrade for Japan, then they'll be gone for the rest of the season, and it is very, very boring, and Max is just going to run away. Ferrari do, of course, have the opportunity to put pressure on Max Verstappen and Red Bull. If we see Sergio Perez not performing how he needs to be performing, getting those podiums, those 3rd and 2nd place finishes week in and week out, if those are going to Ferrari, then both of those drivers are raking in points, being Leclerc and Sainz. They could be a big, big problem for Red Bull, especially if Sergio Perez can't pass the McLarens, dropping him down to 7th or 8th place in these Grand Prix, which would be absolutely detrimental to the success of the Constructors' Championship for Red Bull Racing. The driver's market is heating up, especially even more now, as Carlos Sainz is the only driver to win a Grand Prix in the last who knows how many races that is not in a Red Bull. He is not guaranteed a seat for next year. Of course, we have Lewis Hamilton coming over to join Leclerc at Ferrari. I feel as though he will end up at Red Bull next year, with the energy drink company losing either Max Verstappen due to the internal affairs going on, as I mentioned earlier, or dropping Sergio Perez due to performance-based issues. We will have to see. A lot to look forward to in the F1 world. We will now look at WEC and make some predictions based off of the Qatar race that we have seen so far. I'll see you guys over there. All right, so as far as making predictions after just one race has taken place, I feel it may be somewhat unfair to do so. However, there are some fairly obvious things that need to be pointed out, as well as some exciting news. Porsche are dominating. It's fair, it's easy, that is a 100% true statement. Porsche are dominating in both Hypercar and in GT3. In Qatar, the top 3 for Hypercar were all teams that have Porsche as their manufacturer, being Hertz and Penske. And the unfortunate reliability of the Peugeot that saw it exit the race early would have broken that up. It would have seen a Peugeot in P2 with the Porsche surrounding them. But the performance of Porsche in Hypercar throughout the weekend as a whole was immensely better than others performed. Personally, I was hoping for a battle between Porsche, Ferrari, and Toyota, as we saw happen last year, but that was far, far from the reality. Had the Ferrari, not been wrecked early on in the race, maybe we could have seen more. Maybe we would have seen some competition between them. Maybe those Porsches are spread out a little bit further by the end of the race, not finishing 1, 2, 3. However, only time will tell that. As I said before, we've only had one race. It's difficult to make predictions based off of that. There is hope in the Hypercar series. If that reliability issue was solely a one-off, then that would be very good. If we can see Ferrari step it up, if we can see maybe Toyota step it up quite a bit, then we will have some excitement. This next race in 2 weeks on April 19th will be very, very telling for how the rest of the season will go, because then we'll have 2 endurance races under our belts. Right now, it seems that Porsche will dominate the group. In GT3, however, the Porsche finished ahead of 2 Aston Martinis, not a Porsche top 3. However, the Porsche has a very convincing and dominating performance around the Qatar circuit. The 2 Aston Martins were fairly far behind for a very good duration of the race. The Porsche was very, very strong throughout the race until we ran into some traffic near the end and everybody kind of grouped up a little bit. However, I believe that there is more action to come from other manufacturers as we move to some different climates and different tracks. The Nürburgring is an example that I would personally use. I just think that, like, with the technicality of it, we know that the BMW M4 GT3 will be strong. We know that the Porsche will again be strong. The Aston Martin, maybe not so much. Maybe we see with the long straights that are present on part of the Green Hell, maybe we see some of the American muscles being very, very strong that race. Only time will tell. It gets me very excited for the future. Maybe around Le Mans, where that straight is super long, we see the American V8 just absolutely take off. All we have to go by right now is that Porsche are dominating after the Qatar race. Did the circuit fit the car? Probably. Do other circuits fit the car? Probably. We will only know in due time. Some of the very exciting news is happening in the Hypercar series as well, as we see the new Peugeot Hypercar that was unveiled sometime last week. They took the current racing Peugeot and made some minor tweaks to the outside, at least as far as we know, molding the car a little bit differently. The biggest change to the exterior was the addition of a rear wing. The design of the rear wing is obvious, like it's obviously there, it's obviously added to probably enhance the aerodynamic and downforce capabilities of the car as we move into some more technical circuits, but it's still a very, very low profile. This could be due to maybe some issues that they saw with the lack of wing, or by keeping the one wing, maybe it's an addition to certain courses. I'm not exactly sure how the Parc Fermé rules work in Hypercar, but maybe they can add the wing for certain circuits and do less wing for other circuits like they can in Formula 1. Or maybe not. Maybe it was just an issue that they had and they need that rear wing for some extra downforce. All right, that is all of the speculation that I have through Formula 1 and Hypercar. I hope you guys tune in on whatever episode comes out after April 19th. I think it'll be the 21st, maybe, would be that Tuesday. But that is going to be a good episode after the Hypercar series. Of course, tune in next week as we go over the Japanese Grand Prix. For now, let's talk some live motorsport. Let's talk NASCAR. All right. The NASCAR Toyota Owners 400 in Richmond was very exciting, as we see it started a little bit late due to a rain delay. it only added and built up the expectation for carnage moving into the race itself on a damp track starting on wet weather tires for the cars. Larson led out the cautious first lap as the drivers collected their bearings. By lap 28, the track had a dry line and teams had stated making the decision to move onto slicks for the time being. The caution came out on lap 30, and the caution would be for a dry track while the drivers were still on wet tires. This gave them all an opportunity to box kind of under that caution where cars have to go a little bit slower around the track. I think it was kind of a safety incentive to get everybody into the pits and onto their dry tires that they would end up running for the rest of the race. On lap 64, we see Suarez get some contact on his rear and is sent around by Berry after a good attempt to save it, basically drifting all the way around that embanked corner. We do see him lose it at the very end. He spun around, did get going again, got back on. That was another caution that was brought out in the race. Kyle Larson won stage 1 after this incident happened from Suarez behind the safety or pace car. Truex Jr. passes Larson right at the beginning of stage 2. He leads out of the gates. The third caution coming out on lap 170 as Kyle Busch bounced off one of the walls. On the replay, it looked very, very strange. There wasn't an obvious lockup. There was nothing that would have, nobody bumped him up. He just kind of missed his groove, maybe broke a little bit too late, and just slid, up the barrier, or up the wall, up the embankment of the track, and into the barrier wall. It was, just kind of like a weird failure. He just kind of popped out of the groove and slid up into the wall. That did bring out the third caution. The rest of that stage was fairly straightforward. Truex Jr., who led out of the gates, ended up winning stage 2. At the start of stage 3, we see Bell overtake for the lead early. He then faces trouble as he exited pit row too quickly. This sent him further back, put him out in some traffic. It was not a good stop for Bell. With 2 laps to go and Truex Jr. leading the race, Larson is spun and brings out the final caution. This sets them up to head into overtime. Overtime leads to crazy pit road drama as Truex has a very slow stop, some trouble with the mechanics, and that allows Denny Hamlin to go out in front and lead in overtime. The stop between Hamlin and Truex Jr., they came out of the pits side by side. Hamlin ended up getting to go out in front. On the final lap, the front 4 were grouped very closely together. Logano passed Truex, and he got a little loose. Larson passed Truex, and the same movement. They kind of followed each other through, passing Truex. Truex finished in 4th. Denny Hamlin ended up being the winner of the Richmond race. Your top 10 are as follows: Hamlin, Logano, Larson, Truex Jr., Elliott, Bell, Byron, Keselowski, Buescher, and Reddick. Thank you guys so much for joining me this episode. I really appreciated it. If you guys liked it, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe. Feel free to follow me on my socials. Those will be linked in the description down below. Come back next week as we go over race results and key moments in the motorsport world. Until next time, don't forget to brake late and accelerate early. Peace.